Burning coal makes people sick. It pollutes our air and our water with mercury, soot, smog, and this is all happening at the same time that EPA is weakening standards for pollution from steel mills. And the president is saying it's really important to keep toxics out of the air and out of our environment to protect kids' health. All right, I want to talk about 3 pieces of news from last week that caught my eye, seemingly unrelated, but actually have a lot of tie-ins to each other. The first bit of news comes from the president's Make America Healthy Again Commission report. It was released last week. And look, I am not advising you to take it seriously, but I did note that in the report was a lengthy discussion on the role of toxics from industrial pollution on children's health. It even talks about the rigorous scientific standards that the EPA follows and the role of the EPA in protecting kids' health. So you have the president ostensibly saying that he cares about children's health, and then this great report from CBS News comes out that looks at the health impacts of steelmaking on community members in Gary, Indiana. And the piece starts out with this story from this woman whose family migrated from the South to Gary, Indiana during the Great Migration. Her family got jobs at the mill at a time when Black folks were excluded from a lot of good jobs, and her family was able to build a middle-class life thanks to the steel industry. But now she's dealing with all the pollution impacts from living near this mill her whole life, and she has cancer and is understandably really upset about the lack of pollution controls or efforts by the steel industry to clean up. A lot of folks want the steel industry to stick around in Gary. It's this great source of employment and taxes and everything else, but the pollution has to stop, and the mayor talks about the role the EPA could be playing to reduce pollution at these mills. But Lee Zeldin, who runs the EPA and is on this commission that I mentioned earlier from the president, is actively undermining public health by weakening toxic standards from steel mills. So you have all this conversation about health and steelmaking and pollution and protecting kids' health, and all of this is unfolding as the president is signing off on the purchase of U.S. Steel, one of the largest steel companies in the United States, by another company, Nepon Steel, operates out of Japan. The problem with this is these facilities are going to be quote-unquote modernized in a way that keeps steel running on coal. They are going to spend $14 billion to tie a huge portion of the U.S. steel fleet to 20th century outdated, dirty technology. Come on. Nippon can invest that money more strategically in cleaner ways of making steel that don't use fossil fuels, and we can do this in a way that protects public health, preserves good jobs, and builds a steel industry that we want in this country for the next century.